In 1981, children's author Chris Van Allsburg wrote a book called Jumanji. The story is about two kids who find a board game that, when played, causes strange events to happen throughout the house. This includes the sudden appearance of wild animals to even a monsoon. In 1995, TriStar Pictures came out with a movie adaptation starring Robin Williams and Bonnie Hunt. The film became a massive success, leading to a real-life board game and even an animated series. In 2002, Van Allsburg wrote a sequel to Jumanji called Zathura, this time delving into the realm of science fiction, rather than just a jungle adventure. In 2005, Columbia released an adaptation of the book with little to no connection to Jumanji, outside of advertisements and box art. Now, if you're wondering where I'm going with this, well, all I'm trying to say is that for those who say Zathura is a ripoff of Jumanji, you should really do your research. Zathura tells the story of two brothers named Walter and Danny who live with their divorced father, played by Tim Robbins, and their older sister Lisa, played by Kristen Stewart. As you would expect from these kind of movies, the two brothers do not get along, and their teenage sister would rather spend her free time sleeping. When their father has to go on an errand, Danny finds an old board game called Zathura. Danny convinces Walter to play the game with him, and at first things start out okay, but then Danny gets his first card.
Meteor shower, take evasive action. I have no idea. All it says is take evasive action.
Oh yeah, this is gonna be good. After the meteors die down, they open the door to find out that their house is in outer space! Well, at least you don't have to worry about the rent. Now, as you would expect from Jumanji, the more the kids play the game, the more weird stuff happens. Examples include their sister being cryogenically frozen to summoning a rampaging robot voiced by Frank Oz, not to mention saving a stranded astronaut played by Dax Shepard, and be attacked by lizard men called Zorgons. Because what would a space adventure be without a hostile alien race? And with each new threat they encounter, more and more of the house gets destroyed, leaving the kids more and more exposed to the dangers of space as they travel to a mysterious celestial body known as Zathura. Can they make it to the end of this adventure? Or will the power of the game be too much for them? Now, if the premise of a board game that takes you into space sounds silly and childish to you, then that's because it kind of is. But the good thing about premises like that is that they can be entertaining. The film is kind of like a tabletop RPG. You never know what you're going to encounter. And no matter how ridiculous the dangers may be, we always handle them as if our lives depend on it. You can tell how ridiculous the danger is by just looking at this robot. The design has a bit of a B-movie feel to it, which makes it look both silly yet kind of menacing. I also like how the bulky design of the body makes it so clumsy. It breaks through walls and crashes into things, and yet it still keeps on going. He's just so persistent. He even has a rocket on his back, which he uses to crash into more stuff. And the thing that makes it even better is Frank Oz, but that voice is menacing yet also hilarious.
Alien life form must destroy.
The Zorgon ship also has a bit of a retro style to it, rocket-shaped along with a metallic shell. It's like something out of Flash Gordon. The Zorgons look pretty good too, like something you would see out of a vintage sci-fi comic. The film was directed by Jon Favreau, who would later direct Iron Man and Cowboys and Aliens. And he does a great job with this film. The action scenes are well paced and a lot of fun, the tense moments are very atmospheric, and the visuals are just stunning. The outer space shots look beautiful. Comparing the size of the house to the vastness of space makes you see just how much trouble they can be in. But the real highlights of this movie are the practical effects. That's right, when the ground shakes, it actually shakes. When the house falls apart, it is actually falling apart. And they also use miniatures for the outside shots, and it looks amazing. Now let's talk about the cast. I admit I am not the biggest fan of Kristen Stewart, but honestly, I don't really mind her in this. And not just because she is frozen for half the movie. And I admit the part doesn't give her much to work with, but she does have a decent range of emotion, and she does have a few good lines.
You guys actually set the house on fire!
I also really do like this astronaut. You don't really expect to see Dax Shepard in this sort of movie since he mostly does mature comedies, but he actually does a really good job in this. He does the emotional parts well, he does the determination parts well, and he can also be pretty funny.
I passed through a time sphincter to get here. You realize how difficult that is?
What's a time sphincter?
A wormhole. About yay big.
However, the main focus of the movie is the relationship between Walter and Danny. Danny just wants to have fun with his father and older brother, while Walter tries to distance himself as far away from Danny as possible. Walter says he doesn't have any interest in what Danny wants because he's too old, and they constantly argue. Now, I admit I did not grow up with any siblings, but Walter can come across as a bit mean-spirited to Danny, blaming him for cheating at games, wrecking his stuff. He even sends him down to the dark basement at the beginning of the movie. And while this might make him seem unlikable, the film does show you the reason why he acts this way. And as the brothers' journey continues, Walter does go through a major character arc as he and Danny grow closer as brothers. And while the acting is not the greatest, they do pull it off well enough to keep you invested in the relationship. In the end, Zathura is a fun sci-fi children's movie. It gives you the wonders of going on an imaginary space adventure, but also doesn't shy away from the potential dangers as well. It's films like these that make you really appreciate a child's imagination. While the film got positive reviews from the critics, it bombed in the box office. Therefore, its tie-in merchandise, including a real-life board game, are all very hard to come by. It is a shame that the film didn't get as much attention as it should have. Maybe Jumanji fans thought it was just a carbon copy rather than just an expansion. In 2017, Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle was released. And while I do think that it is a good movie, to me, it just doesn't feel like Jumanji. When I think of Jumanji, I think of a magical board game that can make the dangers become real. To me, Zathura feels more like a true sequel to Jumanji than Welcome to the Jungle. So I recommend checking it out. It may not be perfect, but it is definitely an adventure worth playing. This has been the Redshirt Reviewer reporting from the Sci-Fi Station. Thanks for watching. Oh yeah, and one more thing. Fire needs oxygen to burn! Science, who needs it?